Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Shallow Rising titled Lens of Time, and if we switch over to here we have ourselves a track on YouTube. I should note that I previously reviewed their track titled Remorse Code, so it'll be good to check out more. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. I like this underlying sequence of there, it's cool, man. Interesting snare track. Great to have so much room for the guitars to breathe. An unexpected twist with the bass, nice.
Now you've wasted all your life chasing moments far behind. Live like you never have to see which way the shadows point. Just breathe.
Great use of vocal power planes.
But through the lens of time, there are no guarantees. Turn your back to the hands, live the life you can't perceive. But through the lens of time, there are no guarantees.
Visceral tone to the vocals.
Live the life you can't perceive. Who knows just what you can achieve?
Nice use of distortion there as well, I really dig that. There was some visceral vocal fry that was going on in those last vocal takes. I kind of just low-key wouldn't have minded if the track had finished when he said you don't know when it might end or something along those lines, or you just never know when it will end. That would have been a hell of a finish. That would have been like, oh crap, it's done. You know, but still, I appreciate kind of rounding it out with that last chorus part at the end. I think it's a really well-written and performed track. And we're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Shallow Rising titled Lens of Time. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall song analysis from lyrics and vocals all the way through to the studio production side of things, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But before we go any further, what do we think this track is about? I think that this track is discussing the importance of kind of having a sense of reality with how you view the world and your existence within it. It's discussing making the most of the time that you have as opposed to just assuming that things are going to be okay. realizing that it will end someday and not to take that time for granted, and sort of focusing on what can be achieved as opposed to ruminating on what's come before it. I think that's effectively what the messaging here is to an extent. I think there's more nuance to it, but that's my kind of take on it. And I feel like there's going to be an audience of people who can kind of relate and get behind that kind of subject matter. I think that it's quite meaningful. So I think that that's really well done. I think the story is compelling. The vocals are tremendous. I like the way that we handle our technique and our head and chest voice, the pitch, the frequency, the presence that we have throughout the mix, whether it's our cleans, our vocal fries, or our growled vocals in some of the harder sections. I feel like we have a range of expression that seems appropriate for the subject matter. We choose notes that and that harmonize neatly with the surrounding elements, and we both are capable of adjusting the rhythm and cadence of some of the verses or lines that we sort of communicate, whilst also keeping a sense of consistency with the phrasing of things within those chorus sections to keep them kind of catchy sounding without it being cheesy. I think that the expression that we use with this kind of angst and tension and aggression in those fryish parts is just tremendous. The growls are really well handled there, and it seems like consistent technique that we'll be able to keep for some time to come. I like that we also have adjustments even in the tails of certain parts, and we don't take the listener's attention for granted by trying to provide more of a kind of diversity within those melody and sort of like choices there. I think also the distortion that we had at the end of the track on the vocals was just a nice, interesting, fizzy sort of like addition to the piece that kind of elevated it a little, but it just made it a bit more exciting to listen to. It added a bit more of a kind of an intensity to it that I think drove things home in the final straight. And there were some vocal harmonies as well on the sides there, for example around the 1/40 mark, as well as other parts where just the panning is explorative and you just feel surrounded by the music, and it's just really fantastic. Ultimately, no complaints whatsoever in terms of how things are approached with the way the different vocal layers work. I feel they're great sort of main lead. And that's just basically discussing everything else. Because there's a variety of different guitar, bass, drum, string, key components within this piece. Within a 3-minute 30 track, there is just so much going on. You cannot take the listener's attention for granted. I mean, from the beginning, you just have this kind of ticking, almost like a clock that's passing by. There's a sense of urgency to it. Things are very low key because of the post-production and filtering of things. But you kind of feel like a sense of, oh, this is going to get a lot bigger in a moment, isn't it? There's a little bit of tension there. And you have these kind of strings that are hinting at a kind of a brightness there, like things are about to unfurl. When the distorted rhythm guitars come in, as well as the drums with the on-beat syncopated parts, a mixture of quarters, eighths, and sixteenths, it's just a very interesting, non-straightforward way of approaching that riff work there that adds a sense of chaos to it. And there's a tightness with those double kicks alongside the guitar riffs that is really pleasant to hear. It's just really satisfying. It's a really tight instrumental performance. And there's a mixture of different melodies and harmonies works there with the rhythm as well. I like that we do the chug kind of alternate palm muted parts, but then we also are able to add some sort of like notes that coalesce neatly with the vocals on top there and just color it delicately. I also like that when we have that kind of harsher texture in that chorus part there, occasionally we have the power chords on the guitar there to sort of not overcomplicate the coloration there, to allow the words to be more straightforward and heard more easily. It allows the vibrato to have more sort of presence in the mix in a way that isn't sort of counterproductive. And these keys in the background there are almost sort of like operatic, I suppose. And there's a real sense of theater and drama to the way they kind of cascade around the place. They have sort of like a neoclassical feel to them. There's a ghostliness to them, almost like we're looking through the sands of time in our memories there. The reverb tails hint at a sadder past, like we're mourning something, but we're trying to move on from it at the same time. And there's nice cool responses of vocals, for example, like 2 minutes 10 with the piano twinkling on the side there. The stereo panning of the piano allows it space on the right side away from some of the center melodies there to sort of have its own niche. And you've got these flutters of these sort of like key elements there, these arpeggios in certain parts, such as around the 2 minutes 20 mark, where it's just super exciting and energetic there. It builds up, it crescendos in part due to these additions. And it's not a constant thing either. It's just these little bits of ear candy that really sort of made the track a bit more special and add a bit more oomph in certain sections to let the listener go, oh, something else is happening, what's this? It kind of leads you by the nose a little bit, but in a way where it's satisfying to listen to. And amongst the mixtures of different sort of pinch harmonics and the guitar parts, the very sort of like sort of normal time and double time drum parts there, you just have an effervescent array of different riff ideas that really do sort of like lead, like it's just such a, it's so invigorating to listen to because of the polish and glow of things and the way the frequency spectrum is filled. In that middle part there at 150, things do come down a little bit. Like there's a sense of perceived dynamic range in the sort of like compositional part alone there. And it's nice for the bass to have a bit more time to sort of really kind of like have its own room to breathe. Having almost like a sort of pseudo solo-ish part there as we kind of pause and take our breath for a moment and consider things. To have an absence of the drums there, it all signifies and sort of a direct contrast, primarily because we are not being pushed anymore. We're really taking this situation seriously. And as we go into the halftime part afterwards, it really just kind of make it seem like we're taking more care to be sort of more mindful of what the person is discussing. Like they're creating their universe for us as we go along. In that like middle 8ish part around the 2-minute 40 mark there, it's such a staple of a lot of sort of successful singles. But just how the track stops and just get pauses with nothing happening at all is a contrast to what we've had previously as well. Further compositional diversity and adjustments of how things are perceived, it's just great. And as we have that big riser going into the end with the sub drop there and the boom, the overall track just finishes. It knows that said as much as it needs to there. And you're left to wonder and probably need to re-listen through it again to get all the little nuances and intricacies. But you nonetheless feel like you've had a great time with it. And like I keep going back and finding cute little kind of, and I mean cute in a good way. I keep going back and finding fun little snare and tom fills there and adjustments of the way things are interpreted and represented there. It just feels like such a huge song for 3.5 minutes. There's literally no filler. It's so full of interesting ideas. Thematically, I think outside of a really capable instrumental performance where instruments both have their own room to breathe and have their say, even the bass, when they're not working together and showing fantastic chemistry, you've just thematically got a piece which kind of is clearly minor oriented because of the struggle that we're going to, but the energy and the vigor behind it kind of insinuates a motivation to continue pushing through that. The power and the force of things propels you, and I just think it's just really special the way that they approach that. They allow you moments to pause, again, like such as in the middle parts, sort of like digest things, but I think that's simply because they're being mindful of the listener's experience. And so there's some sort of melodic and harmonic minor elements alongside the minors, some chromatics occasionally, but we don't really do anything too spicely or diatonic outside the diatonics. I think we are trying to make it vocal focused and not be too alienating for people that are not as used to alternate scale choices, whilst also adding a sense of heaviness with the surrounding elements there and an interesting array of different tones and textures to be able to sort of get us through it in a way that's, with a sense of sophistication. The studio recording, mixing and mastering is typically very effective. I like the way the vocals are presented, both the mains and the backing parts, alongside the guitar, bass, drums, the various key parts, the strings, synths, etc. Any other bits of ear candy, the rises, the sub drops at the end. Everything is nicely positioned within the stereo field, the sides of the headphones as well as in the free spectrum with no red resonant frequencies. Things move between, such as the vocal takes and the main parts, and the keys have their own sort of range as opposed to their instrumental part with the right hand being on the right side. There is compositional dynamic range. It is a tight mix though, which, it's commercial grade in that respect. I think for the most part, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the mix for the most part. It's an interesting mix. There's a sense of like, it's kind of organic and I kind of dig that. That's not me trying to say it's not done well. It's more that I'll think on that, but I do think it's mixed very, very well. Studio recording, mixing and mastering is fantastic, and generally the bus compression, limiting compression is handled. It's nice to allow that. A bit of pumping there, but not to an extent where it seems detrimental. No real applicable constructive critique on me for this one. I'm just another really strong effort. From a general listener's perspective, I hear this and I go, I think that it's like a great equilibrium between identifying that there is a problem and we need to solve it, and that we're maybe ruminating and doing unhealthy things, but also trying to find a pragmatic sort of a positive but authentic and genuine way of pushing forward. And I think this is one of the tracks where it just can be very easy nowadays to be like, cheer up, get over it. Push through it. But I don't think that's always, at the very least, I think many of us can agree, it's not always necessarily helpful. Especially for those that are already struggling whilst they've been trying to do that for a long time or have been struggling for a long time. So I like the approach that Shallow Rising take here. I think it's really well intentioned, and I wish them all the best of luck in future, because thank you for watching my review of this track from an act named Shallow Rising, titled Lens of Time. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.